All right, guys, so today we are going to be taking a look at the LG Velvet in 2022-2023. And the reason we're doing this today is because although this phone was released about in 2020 of May, this is a fantastic buy, and you can actually get this phone right now for about $100 to $150. So let's take a quick look at it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the display. The display for LG here is, I would say bar none in terms of a very industry-leading standard design. It's got a 6.8 inch display. It's a 1080p panel with a pixel density of 395 ppi, and also it's an POLED display. And what that really means is that's really LG's own technology going into this display. And as you can probably see, when you're using it, it's absolutely beautiful, very vibrant, very actually saturated quite well to look very poppy. And also the one thing I wanted to talk about as well was the refresh. Although this phone doesn't have a high refresh, it feels like it does. It's still a 60 hertz refresh, but again, LG's done such a great job at this, it feels really good. So going on to performance here, just going over the specs really quick. It's got a Qualcomm 765G 5G chipset with graphics of Adreno 620. The one I'm using right now in the video is the 6 gig RAM with 128 gigabyte of storage. It's also got a micro SD card expansion, and it has a over 4,000 milliamp battery. It has 4,300 milliamp battery. Now, what can I really tell you about the performance? Getting all those specs out of the way is that it's buttery smooth. It's lightning fast, and for this phone that was actually just released back in 2020, almost 2 to 3 years ago now, I'm honestly very surprised why LG didn't continue their line of phones, because in my opinion, looks like when they released the LG Velvet, they really had something there. Even to this day, I still kind of sometimes randomly go back to this phone because, again, the performance on this phone is so smooth, and you wouldn't think that it would be in terms of, it doesn't have the most amazing specs on it, but the optimization that LG's really done here with its software and hardware works flawlessly, works really smoothly. Now, honestly, obviously there's going to be a little bit of a jitter and stutter from time to time, and that I don't really blame LG for. It's more of the Android ecosystem and how the software really operates amongst not just this phone but many Android phones. But again, in terms of the specs, the performance is fantastic. As you can kind of see here, me zooming in and out of a web page, it's coming up really quickly and no real major hiccups. So overall, I'd probably say just amazing to see that this phone still lives up about 2 to 3 years later, and its performance is still, I would rate it to a mid-tier phone released this year. Does really well in that category. Obviously, there's a little bit of optimization that's required, but other than that, overall, it's a great phone. So let's go over to design. Design for this phone is really interesting because the first thing I'll tell you is that it is not a one-handed phone. And what I mean by that is, it's a big phone, guys. Let's not kid ourselves. But going over the quick specs of it, it's got a glass front and glass back, an aluminum frame. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. The cameras on this phone, just as a quick piece, is 16 megapixel for the selfie, 48 megapixel, an 8 megapixel, and a 5 megapixel on the back. So really amazing to see they got so many of a triple camera setup. hooked up to that. It's got HDR. It also records video in 4K at 30 frames per second, and then at 1080p at 60 frames per second. And the other thing as well, it's got stereo speakers. So if you're going to be watching a lot of YouTube, Netflix, and all that kind of stuff, it's going to sound great. It's going to sound fantastic. Very lights up the room with the audio. And the biggest thing I'll tell you about this, it's a fingerprint magnet for sure. You end up cleaning this thing a bunch of times throughout the day, and as you can see it in my hand, quite big, very large display. But it's so beautiful in terms of how they designed this phone. It feels absolutely breathtaking in the hands, feels very light, very comfortable, and just that huge display does a lot in terms of when you're really taking in content across all platforms. So really happy with the display. I think they did a fantastic job still living up now. So, what would I say right now in terms of a conclusion piece? Would I recommend this phone to anyone really after 2 years of its release? And the answer to that is absolutely a resounding yes. And I'll tell you why that is, because I'm a person that really picks something for kind of the price per value piece. And what I mean by that is, how much are you investing or paying into something, and what are you getting back? And to get this phone refurbished from the manufacturer or a party seller for about $150 right now, it's probably one of the best buys I can imagine an older phone in the 2020 to 2023, because it still lives well. And Google actually gave it Android 12 update still, which is just one version behind the Android 13, which is the newest one. So 2-3 years later, it's still got a semi updated version of Android, which is kind of amazing to see there. So I would 100%, if you have an older phone, like I would say prior to 2020, I would absolutely look at this phone, because every time I pick this up, it's a joy to use. The display is beautiful. The cameras are great. It's easy to hold. Although it's a big phone, it's really light and portable to still use. So overall, I would say a great buy for somebody that has a phone older than 2020, maybe into the 2018s or so. And what a great price you can kind of pick this up right now. So that's been it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope it makes sense for you, and I hope I've been able to kind of give you a little bit of clarity on what to kind of invest into. But other than that, feel free to like, subscribe, and please comment on this video, and I'll check you guys in the next one. Peace.